have something I want to tell you. It's a secret. Are you leaning in? That's a sign of a good listener. We need to be able to do that at other times, not just when somebody might be wanting to tell us a secret. I'm here today to teach you about effective listening. As we begin, we need to understand what the topics are that are involved in effective listening. Our topics today will include active listening and what we need to do to make sure that we are actively listening to our speaker. Next, we're going to need to understand how to get the meaning behind the message of the speaker. Third, we need to know how to use empathy as we are listening to a speech and listening to a speaker. Fourth, open-minded listening. I'm going to explain to you what that means, and I'm going to give you an example of how open-minded listening might be a little bit more difficult than we think. And finally, ethical listening. We need to make sure that we are listening with good ethics in mind. To begin with, active listening. What's involved in active listening? Well, body language. Remember how you might have leaned in when I was going to tell you a secret? It's important to make sure that we are using the right kind of body language to be an active listener. Notice in the picture, people are leaning in. They're looking at each other, showing that they're interested in what's being said. The thought process. As we're thinking about what's being said, we're involved in active listening. What are some things we need to avoid? Well, first of all, we need to not be self-involved. We need to make sure we avoid things such as thinking about something that has happened or something that will happen, not related at all to what the speaker is trying to convey. We don't want to do that. Next, message meanings. Message meanings. We need to focus on the message. And in focusing on the message, we need to take verbal and nonverbal clues. Verbal clues are pretty easy. Nonverbal clues, not so easy. As we take a look at the pictures, we can see by the pictures that are up on the screen that when someone is standing with a different expression, maybe one of being upset, or even just having their arms folded, it might convey to us a message other than what we really were intended to get. So sometimes we need to look at different types of nonverbal clues, not only for hidden messages, but really so that we're truly understanding the message that's being conveyed. We need to make sure that we understand the topic, the main points of what's being said in the speech. Not only do we understand the main points, but what are some of the specific items that help to support those main points that the speaker's trying to get across? Perhaps a couple of things that you might ask yourself as you're trying to capture the message meanings. What is the speaker trying to say to me? Or what is the speaker not saying to me? As we move on, we get to using. What does empathy mean? Well, empathy means that try to put yourself in the shoes of the speaker. Try to feel as they feel. Try to make sure that you see things as they see things. Although you can't do that to the same level that they are, you can try, and that's an important part. There are two types of empathy: thinking and feeling. Well, now that I know that there are those thinking and feeling types, how do I apply those? When you're listening to a speech, nod your head in approval when you're understanding what the speaker's saying. Use facial expressions. Oh. Recap to show your understanding. If possible, I understand. To empathize with you, I see your point. All of those types of things might help you in using empathy. Open-minded listening. This is where I struggle sometimes. I have 3 teenage boys, 5 children total, 3 teenage boys. Sometimes it's difficult for me to listen with an open mind when we're having discussions where perhaps I might be thinking about an alternate way that they should do something while they're speaking to me. I can't do that. I need to listen with an open mind, and the number one thing, that's difficult to accomplish. You have to learn what the steps are in order to achieve open-minded listening. What are those steps that we need to follow? Do not judge too soon. You cannot make a judgment without fully listening to what's going on and listening with an open mind, making sure you don't judge too soon. You don't want to give the scores out before the act has completed. Recognize your own biases. Understand where your bias lies. Avoid message reconstruction. Don't try to reconstruct the message that the speaker is giving to you and applying your own thoughts and feelings behind that. Next, ethical listening. In order to listen effectively, not only do we need to follow all the steps that I had listed previously, but you need to make sure that you are ethically listening. And probably one of the most important things, you need to have honesty. There needs to be honesty in the way that you are hearing the message, and also honesty in the way you respond to that message. Make sure that you are applying all of these rules, and you will become an effective listener. So how do we recap? What are those steps to listening? Well, first, listen actively. Lean in. Really try and give the body language. Make it a point to listen. Try to understand the message that's being conveyed by the speaker. Empathize with the speaker. Make sure that you are trying to put yourself as best you can in their shoes. Listen with an open mind. That's difficult to do, right? Make sure that you do not judge and that you let your own biases go aside. And finally, listen ethically. Be honest when you hear their message and also when you respond to their message. Thank you. I hope you've learned a great deal about becoming an effective listener.